It gives me great pleasure, and please give a warm welcome to introduce you to Amy Schulman of Polaris Partners. Her talk today presented with the Massachusetts Life Sciences Center. Amy?
I want to start by going back in time. That may seem like a strange thing to do if we're going to talk about women and biotech. Strange because the time I want to take you back to, there wasn't really biotech, and I was not a woman, but a little girl in second grade. I was in gym class, and this was before Title IX. So, gym class mostly consisted of sitting on a bench, watching the boys play whatever sport they were playing. That definitely had its rewards. And then Red Rover and dodgeball. I think dodgeball is probably outlawed these days. If it isn't, it should be, because it doesn't involve any athletic skill and no sportsmanship. But basically, you sit on two sides of a gym or a field and take these hard, round balls and throw them at the other team. Whichever team has somebody left standing who hasn't been hit by the ball is the winner. The things that make you really, really good at dodgeball are terror, tininess, and an uncanny ability to disappear in plain sight. I was very good at all three of those things. Many girls of my generation were good at all three of those things. So, what does that have to do with why I'm here today? Why did I think of dodgeball? It's precisely because talking authentically about the systematic underrepresentation of women in biotech is something many of us would like to avoid doing. Why is that? Certainly, biotech is hands down the most welcoming, meritocratic, determined to get it right profession of any that I've ever belonged to. And I've been working since I was 13 years old. So that's definitely saying a lot. Many of us come to this question with a set of familiar statistics and assumptions. It's the well documented STEM problem of young girls not getting into science and technology. It's a recruiting problem and how people reach out differently to male and female applicants. It's a problem of the fact that women have, depending on your perspective, opportunities or necessities to make different choices in what can be an all encompassing career. It's an unconscious bias problem. It's a lean in problem. Each one of those is correct, but it's completely beside the point if they're used to anchor and justify the status quo. Equally known and familiar are the statistics on how much diverse teams function better. But by the way, only if the diversity of perspectives is actually welcomed and encouraged. And we all know that having diverse teams makes sense if we want to speak better to our customers, to our regulators, to our potential hires. Equally well known are the by now depressing statistics on the fact that our seemingly objective choices aren't. That when we interview people for jobs, Jane and John send out the exact same resume, the exact same cover letter, and John's response rate is statistically significantly higher than Jane's. Or that women, when they're pitching new ideas to venture capitalists, get asked about risk and men get asked about opportunity. And guess what? We fund things based on opportunity more than on risk. So if we all know these statistics and we're so determined to do better, why haven't we made more progress? And that's what makes talking about this so hard. Because the very things that entitle women to a seat at the table, our competence, our ability, our power, our ambition, are sometimes the same things that make us less likable. and men and women sit on opposite sides of the likability divide. All of us, or most of us, want to work with people we like. Most of us want to be liked. And yet, our power is what makes it harder for us to be accepted. So, here I want to tell you another story. And this one is the exact opposite of the dodgeball story. I was on a panel recently, and at the end of the panel, there were no questions. So the brave moderator turned to the panelists and said, this was last January, what do you think? Now that the Me Too movement has happened, is this finally our moment? And I happened to be the very first panelist asked. And I was scared to answer. I was scared not because I didn't know how I felt. I knew exactly how I felt, but because I was worried that my answer wouldn't be likable. So I thought again of my dodgeball days, and I knew that the safe dodgeball answer would be to say, oh, yes, I hope so. But I reminded myself I may still be short, but I'm not tiny, I'm not terrified, and I'm not disappearing. So I took a deep breath and I said, yes, I hope so, but women still earn 80 cents to every man's dollar. And then I went through the statistics I just cited on the fact that there are only 7% of biotech CEOs are women, that 5% of our funding goes to women, that 10% of our boards have women on them, and of those, only 2% are board chairs. And really, those are pretty depressing, pretty familiar statistics. And then I went on to say, how is the Me Too movement a surprise to so many men? Why is this surprising? For so many women that I know, it's an all too familiar story. Familiar either because of things they've experienced, because of environments they've been in that are subtly or actively less welcoming, because of their own experiences and those of their friends. Really? This is a surprise? What have you all been thinking we have been talking about for all these years when we have said as women, our experience is not the same as yours? That's what this means. You have had the power and we haven't. And that's why I wonder whether this really is our moment. Because men are still surprised, and for women, it's depressingly familiar. So I said that, and there was this kind of quiet that fell over the audience. And I felt good. I thought, okay, I leaned in. I didn't dodge the question. I was, not hectoring. I was open. I was vulnerable. I was real. And they're probably quiet because it's just sinking in, this kind of, great revealed truth that I've now expressed about the Me Too movement and women in biotech. But no, from the audience comes this hand, and it's the hand of the safe dodgeball dodge. And this person stands up and says, well, yes, that's all good, but isn't what we really care about quality? And don't we really just want the best people for jobs, regardless of whether or not they're male or female? And by the way, shouldn't we thank all of those brave men who took a chance and mentored us? And guess what? That remark got a standing ovation. And so I thought to myself, this is the likability dilemma in action. Because when we choose to claim power rather than to ask for it, we run the risk. Who said anything about choosing women over quality? And who said that we weren't grateful for all the help we've gotten from men and women along the way? How did that become the question? So, all right, we're not playing dodgeball anymore. But I thought of Abby Wambach's brilliant speech to the Barnard graduates this year, where she essentially said, listen, are we ready to stop being Little Red Riding Hood on the safe and narrow path? Is it the case that if we claim our power, if we demand rather than ask, if we insist rather than request, if we express how strong we are we in danger? Is it time, Abby said, for us to recognize that we are not Little Red Riding Hood hiding under our scarf, but that we actually can also be the wolf? Well, I don't know. I don't know if this is our moment. But I do know that if each of us stops dodging the question, if each of us is unafraid to insist rather than to ask, if we make way and ask others to make way, then it should be our moment. It could be our moment. And I thank you for giving me a chance to talk to you about this today.